Lewis Hamilton is once again a victim of yet another alleged sabotage orchestrated by Mercedes. George Russell robbed him of a podium the Canadian Grand Prix right after the team went against his wishes to keep driving on medium tyres. This made him furious as he claimed that this race was one of the worst races he's ever driven. Lewis made no secret of it, and Mercedes is unapologetic about it. Let's hear all about it in today's video. After the Monaco Grand Prix qualifying, Lewis Hamilton hinted at some tension within Mercedes by stating that he doesn't see himself being ahead of George Russell at any point in the season. With Hamilton's impending move to Ferrari next year, George Russell has assumed the role of the team's top driver, receiving priority for upgrades. Criticism has ramped up against team boss Toto Wolff and the rest of the team following the Canadian Grand Prix strategy, especially after Russell claimed the podium spot that was within Hamilton's reach. There's a possibility that his comments from Monaco about not finishing ahead of Russell could be linked to the qualifying issues in Canada. Lewis Hamilton momentarily secured third place, but a late move by George Russell prevented him from achieving his first podium since Mexico last year, marking the longest period without a podium in his career. Hamilton's 2024 season with Mercedes hasn't been the smoothest, as he has been outqualified by his teammate 8 times so far. He's only managed to beat Russell in qualifying once, which happened in Miami. While some might view Lewis Hamilton's Canadian Grand Prix as a success, starting from P7 and finishing in P4, the 7-time champion himself wasn't satisfied with his performance. During an interview on F1 TV Live, he hinted that had he qualified better, a race win in Montreal could have been possible. But he also pointed out some issues during qualifying, throwing a subtle jab at Toto Wolff and suggesting that certain factors contributed to his subpar qualifying performance on Saturday. Lewis Hamilton has admitted that the Canadian Grand Prix was one of the worst races he's driven, expressing his disappointment after finishing in 4th place. His comments post-Canadian GP goes as follows. Over the weekend, it was just a really poor performance from myself. During qualifying, some other things came into it, but mostly from myself. On Sunday, it was one of the worst races that I've driven. Just lots of mistakes, but of course, if I qualified better, I would have been in a much better position. It is what it is. I'll go back to the drawing board. Toto Wolff said that he saw a potential victory for Mercedes at the 2024 Canadian Grand Prix, but those hopes were dashed due to avoidable errors made by George Russell in Montreal. Nevertheless, Mercedes managed to secure 28 points from the race in North America, tying with McLaren for the highest points earned. He told Sky Sports after the race, "The victory was a long shot or a short dream when George was on the hard. He was catching up and had some really strong pace. For a second we thought about it, but you mustn't be too greedy." At a certain point, Wolff had to intervene on the team radio and instruct Russell to focus. He continued to emphasise and address Russell's mistakes during the race. That pass on Piastri in that corner was never on. He was taking some risk and he just tried very hard. And this one was maybe a bit too ambitious and cost the position, but he regained that afterwards. On the other side, maybe there was 1 or 2 mistakes that we could have avoided. But we need to take the positives. The car has made a real step forward with bringing bits and the development direction is true. George Russell offered an apology, not to his teammate for stealing a podium, but to Toto Wolff and the rest of the team for what he described as an ugly race at the Canadian Grand Prix. Despite snatching the final podium spot from his teammate Lewis Hamilton in the closing laps, the Mercedes star expressed frustration after crossing the finish line. The 26-year-old secured pole position and successfully held off Max Verstappen in the early stages of the race. But he lost ground to Lando Norris as the race progressed. Russell also faced challenges off-track, including running across the curb, while battling Norris late in the race and making contact with Oscar Piastri, resulting in a trip to the runoff area. Russell found a measure of redemption during his battle with Piastri. Their tussle allowed Hamilton to surge into P3. As the laps dwindled, Russell executed a daring move at the final chicane, propelling himself back into the podium-paying positions. Yet, despite this strong comeback, Russell expressed frustration over team radio after the race, saying, "Ugly race on my behalf, sorry for that, I'm very sorry for that." After getting out of the car, Russell continued to voice his disappointment. He said, "It felt like a missed opportunity, to be honest. We were really quick at the beginning of the race on the intermediate tyres, and then obviously Lando came through really fast, and then we jumped back onto the slicks. I made a couple of mistakes out there just pushing the limits, paid the price for it, but nevertheless first podium of the year. We truly had a really fast car this weekend, and to be back in the mix fighting for victory was really fun. That's what Formula One's about, and that's why we go racing." As Verstappen maintained the lead in the latter part of the race, Russell reclaimed P2 from Norris after the second round of pit stops. However, a mistake on his part allowed Norris to regain the position. When asked if he had sensed a chance to challenge Verstappen before his error, Russell replied, "I think so. We had the pace. Max was very strong at that point of the race, but then when we put the mediums on at the end, we were really fast. I think that mistake with Oscar when I tried overtaking him, and I lost the position to Lewis, it cost us at least P2. And maybe we could have fought with Max later in the race. But we'll take all the positives from this weekend. First podium, first pole position of the year, and it's exciting moving forward. I think if you told us ahead of this weekend and P3, we may not have believed you, to be honest. But as Max Verstappen said, it was such a tricky race out there for everybody. You put a millimetre wide and you're off. And I think for me, it was just one too many mistakes at key moments that cost us a shot of fighting with these two towards the end of the race." Russell's duel with Oscar Piastri led to both drivers being summoned to the stewards after the race. Sharing his perspective on the fight and his on-track battle with Hamilton, the Silver Arrows driver stated, "It was pretty tight out there with Oscar, and then with Lewis at the end as well. I think it was hard, fair racing. It's so difficult when there's only one dry line, so you've got to be committed and trust your rivals." Despite a challenging start to the season, Mercedes showcased its strongest performance yet in 2024 during the Canadian Grand Prix. Hamilton is hopeful that more positive results will follow as the season unfolds. He said, "On a positive note, a big thank you to everyone back at the factory for progressing this car. It is becoming a car that we can fight with, and that's a real positive going into the next part of the season. I know we'll have some more upgrades on the way, it's going to be a close battle. If I get my head on right, I'll get better results at some stage. This weekend, the car was capable of winning. That's why it's not such a great feeling. We'll take the points, keep moving, and keep trying." Toto Wolff added his perspective on the team's performance, noting their recent progress and setting realistic expectations for the races ahead. He also showed hope about the improvements made to the Mercedes car, saying, "As we've said for a while, we're going in the right direction. We've brought lots of little bits over the last few races, some more visible than others, but definitely heading to a more performant car. In Formula One, there is never one bit coming on the car, since the double diffuser, that makes all the difference. We were running the old wing yesterday, and we were very competitive in all conditions, actually. So it's what has come on the floor, little bits on the bodywork and underneath, and obviously the front wing, which is more visible. It seems that the relationship between Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes gets trickier with each day that passes. Is there some merit to the sabotage claims, or is it just pure speculation? Tell us what you think in the comment section down below. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.